Yes. And I'd like to welcome our listeners to Sean today. This is our official first podcast since we relaunched the site seantoday.com. And I am really pleased to be joined here with my regular co-host, Eric Ebright. How you doing, Eric?
Yes. Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate us coming together to drop this first episode to the people. So,
That's right.
is
That's
my
right.
audio coming in clear?
It is. How's mine? Good?
Yeah, you're sounding great, brother.
Outstanding, brother. All right. So, being that this is kind of like an introduction to us and to what we're all about, you want to give like a 30-second spiel about yourself?
Oh, sure. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I went to high school with Sean and helped get him elected president of our of his graduating class. I was 1 year above him, but as the vice president of my class, I was able to pull some strings and make sure that he became the president of his class. And now I'm just trying to bring back that student government, and the history is to be revealed as the podcast continues.
Hey, we don't want to talk about that because that almost implies that there was some underhanded activities going back there, and we're all in the up and up, and
Oh,
you know,
yes, that is true. I apologize for any unethical activity
but
as a child, and I take full blame. You were not, you, you know, you did not encourage me to enter additional paper ballots. Or
but I ballot stuffing you say for my high school presidency, yeah, but anyway. You know what, listeners, this that will be a chat for another day. I know you're all excited to hear about that, about the infamous reign of Sean Chow, senior class president of Fort Hays High School, back in Columbus, back in the day. It seems like two lifetimes ago, not just one, but two lifetimes ago. We are ancient millennials at this point, Eric.
yeah,
So.
it's fascinating to think about. You
But
know,
hey, it's a good segue too. Speaking of old and speaking of government or governance for that matter, my name is Sean. I'm yours truly. That I have been well. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, many years ago, and I was raised in Columbus. That's how I met Eric. We went to the same high school as he mentioned. But since then, I've led a pretty interesting life. Pretty much everything you can think about that is something that people would do. I've probably done it outside the medical field. I've probably done some aspect of it. That's why I'm called the everything guy. That's my what is it? What do they call it? Nom de guerre or whatever. It's the title. Well, I'm the everything guy. So. But yeah, I've done everything from running for a statewide office in the state of Maryland. Uh, I supporting the federal government. I've actually supported the federal government for just about 2 decades at this point, and I was in the army, or I still am in the army, actually in the reserve. But I've served in the army reserve for 18 plus years at this point. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what I'll do at the 20-year mark, if I stay or go, we'll see. But and I've created numerous businesses, and some of them have been successful, some of them not so much, but in every single instance I have learned and grown. And really, I mean, that's something to really be proud of. So but anyways, so Eric, we have a few prepared topics for today. I wanted to chat about something I saw the other day. I actually saw it. To be fair, I actually saw this some time ago, but it was a post on social media on Facebook, and here's how it goes: a teacher came into her class and wrote the following on the board, and she proceeds to write. And keep in mind, this is probably in elementary school or something like that. 9 times 1, 9 times 2, and so forth, all the way up to 9 times 10. Now, the very first one, 9 times 1, the teacher wrote equals 7, but every subsequent answer was actually correct. So 9 times 2 equals 18, 9 times 3 is 27, so forth. Now, when she finally got to 9 times 10 equals 90, she then turned around. Now, by then, there was a growing cacophony, yeah, cacophony of laughter from the students. Now, bear in mind a couple caveats here. This is probably elementary school, so their social skills are probably not as well formed. But the point is that the teacher went ahead and said to the class, I wrote the first one wrong on purpose. And the reason is because I wanted you to see how the world will treat you when you mess up. I only wrote one equation wrong, but I got all the other answers 9 other times correct. And so the moral of the post was, you know, most people in the world may treat you poorly as soon as they see something wrong. As soon as you have made a mistake, as soon as others see you fall short of the goal, they will ridicule you either in front of your face, behind your back. But that's what people do, and the question then is, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to overcome it? And how do you view that that reality, right? Because although the scenario is probably with kids, the same goes with adults, and I'm sure all of our listeners have heard and seen this themselves. When they make a mistake, other people make fun of them, or they criticize their competency. They make them question themselves, right? So I don't know.
Hmm.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, I mean, I think a couple things stick out to me there. One, as a way to combat this, practice forgiveness. That helps. However, I think thinking about this subject touches on a couple of different thought processes within me. One of them being like our inherent negativity bias, that like as a species, will be more likely to focus on something that's wrong. And it grew up out of our own like evolutionary development to be able to be safe, but now it's like a hindrance on our own way of thinking. So people focusing on the fact that the teacher got something wrong in this case, and only commenting on that, or I guess it reminds me of that, and ways to counter that. Like even within relationships, they say like when you make a negative comment towards your partner, or even if it's just a platonic relationship, it takes like five positive things that a person needs to hear reinforced in order to balance out that one negative effect. So that makes me think of also then like not counterculture, but cancel culture in a way where it's easy when someone makes a faux pas, or says something that then they later change their minds about, they're judged about their mistakes. um, and it also brings into the mind my own change in beliefs around like you know and this is kind of stretching the metaphor a little bit, but just like taking everything as a lesson, like even the mistakes that we make and the ridicule that we will receive, like these are all healthy lessons to learn from. And how do we change it on a cultural level? I think it goes back to my first statement around forgiveness and bringing that as a shared value.
That's a really good point, Eric. I will say this. One of the people that commented on that post that we're talking about, he was like, "Hey, look, this is actually perfectly fine, because how people react in a negative light to a mistake is directly, in his opinion, a correlate is correlated to the expected skill level of that person." So, the hypothetical of the teacher is expected to be able to do simple arithmetic questions, and when they make a simple mistake, they're due that ridicule. I had to push back on that significantly. It doesn't matter who you are, how capable you are, what your title is. Doesn't matter what education you have. It doesn't matter if you've done the same thing repetitively a million times to the point that you are expected to be the grandmaster. There are grandmasters in any vertical that have made mistakes, even when they are on the top of their proverbial game. And they are no more deserving of ridicule than anybody that's not quote unquote a master in their respective field. We all make mistakes. To err is to be human. It is a part of the human condition. And it really, when somebody makes a mistake and when people have the audience has a negative reaction to it, it is more reflective. And I want to know what you think, Eric, on this. It is more reflective on that audience, on those people, than it is for the one that made the mistake.
Like how we're responding to the mistake is more reflective of the mistake in a way, because then it shows how big of a mistake it's considered. You mean because of the
Well,
response and reaction that people have, or
well, I would say that it's more reflective of the audience in the sense that it shows what their nature is, right? If
mm,
somebody sees somebody else that has made a mistake, is their inclination to try to comfort them or try to help them, or is it
mm,
to ridicule them? And I think that when you see how somebody reacts in that type of situation, you have a better inclination on who they are as a person.
right? That's true, and as a evolving human species, I know that we still carry a lot of I don't know. I guess like I was going back to that the concept of just making it so that we're able to be more forgiving, or also not. I don't know. I'm losing my thought here. However, I
Yeah.
just wanted
Actually, I have I got a book on Buddhism, what Buddhists believe, and it's actually archived at the National Archive for free. I'm gonna post a link to it for everybody. But the reason I'm mentioning is that it talks a lot about how we should view others, how we should view ourselves, how we should view how we interact with one another. And I think that there's a lot of value there. I think I'm not saying that I'm a Buddhist or anything like that, but I do think that you know Buddhism, as well as many other religions, do preach a lot of concepts that are how humans really ought to treat one another, right? And it's funny, as much as the population in our large world contains people that believe it, or profess to believe in something, we have no shortage of people that on a daily basis all around us that choose to be mean, choose to ridicule, choose to put others down. And unfortunately, I find it very unfortunate and quite sad. I am disappointed in humanity to have such a uh negative like aspect to themselves, to their fellow man.
right.
Anyways,
But I think part of that though is it feels good when people do it, and that's why they do it. It feels good calling somebody else out, and it makes you feel yourself, or it can make a person feel better about themselves, and looking down, judging another person, putting someone else down, helps them feel, some type of rush of dopamine, and gives their life some type of missing
absolutely.
excitement, perhaps, and like
Well,
it's like
it's filling their own insecurities, right? At the end of the day, the masses, the majority of people, by definition, are average. And when they see somebody try to be exceptional, and I know we're kind of going on a slight tangent here, but when somebody tries to achieve something, when they try to be exceptional at something, and when they fall short, they're happy to see that, because they want they want to drag those people down, whether they realize it or not. And a lot of times they don't even acknowledge, like intellectually understand that that's the phenomenon going on. But at the end of the day, they're just being jealous of others, and they can't handle it. And the way that they handle it is by expressing glee when they fall, when that person that they see as their target falls short. I can't tell you though, how often that when people act that way, it is only a fleeting positive impact to themselves. When you talk about dopamine, all that stuff, that is fleeting. When somebody ridicules somebody else, let's say on the internet or something, on social media or whatever, right? By the way, social media, experts say, is the source of misery for people. But you know what? People on social media are just being themselves. People have always been mean. People are mean in real life. People are going to be mean online. Online is probably amplified a bit just because there's this false sense that you're behind a screen, but that's not even so much the case anymore. You can track down pretty much any single person that shares any modicum of a footprint of themselves online. But anyways, I digress. I think that that's actually a good segue to speaking of, being able to know people. I have revamped my website, as we mentioned at the beginning of this podcast session today. And I think, what do you think about it? I'm not done yet. I actually, I don't know if you're looking at it, but I have um, I don't have the musings portion up yet, but I have who is Sean Chow. So you guys can all Google me, and now also have the entire website that I pretty much just knows what I am. I have a success community, and actually that success community is going to be pretty great because I'm going to actually be doing coaching courses on there. A lot of it's going to be free material, a lot of entrepreneurial development, a lot of stuff that will help all of you listeners and all of you followers out there to really be able to maximize your own respective utility functions and really get to whatever goals that you may have. I also listed my various businesses on there. I don't know if you saw that, Eric.
Yes, I love the photo on the about page.
Yeah.
Yes, it reminds me of the future when you get sworn in as a congressman.
Oh, goodness. Well, you're too kind. I do hope one day to be a congressman, but that feels like a ever far away type of thing going on. So I'm just going to take it one day at a time. But that definitely is still my goal.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I'm intrigued by your whole mastermind group that you're putting together, as far as a way in which people can kind of have some type of internal coaching with you. I think that's going to be awesome. And then just looking at the portfolio of companies that you've started and been a part of, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it looks much better than anything I've seen in the past. So I'm grateful that all this is kind of really starting to roll. And as
Well,
a
it is actually funny. I wasn't planning on doing this revamp on the website today. I actually did everything today. I spent the whole day, all of the 18th, just working on this site. And the main reason is because I wanted to have it prepared for our chat today. So, it was because of you, Eric. It was because of you. I finally got off my butt and did it.
all right, I'm glad I inspire somebody in this world.
No, oh, you are a very inspirational character, my friend. You
I
know, And if you didn't go into your profession, your chosen profession of artistry, you would have been a great philosopher, I think.
I know. I still remember when Doreen Uhas Sauer told me, when I told her I was going to go into, computer graphics and art and design, and she was like, "Oh, Eric, you have such a beautiful mind. I really wish you would go and, you could be like a lawyer or something." And I was like, "Well, my dad said I could be anything in this world but a lawyer." And then I told my dad that later. It was pretty funny. He was like, "Oh no, I just meant you could be a defense lawyer. That's okay, or I don't know, whatever.
It's funny because I then went on to go to law school and get my Juris Doctor. But
There
yeah,
you go.
and no, I think that lawyers are necessary, and they do a lot of good. And I'm not just saying that because of some impartiality on my part, um, but actually that really goes to a great point. I mean, a segue though, talking about finding purpose. So
Hmm.
and also who's Doreen for our readers or for our listeners and followers out there.
Oh, well, Doreen Sauer was my 11th grade history teacher, and much more than that, she was served as a catalyst for many different activities in the Ohio State historical community. There's a book called Forgotten Ohio that she co-authored. She helped out with so many different activities, and had a husband that also taught at Fort Hayes. I'm pretty sure they separated, but
Oh, that's
nevertheless, a powerful figure in the whole state of Ohio, and continues to inspire me when I
oh,
when
for
I think,
sure.
yeah, think about my times at Fort Hayes.
Fort Hayes was really a magical place. I have to say, it is insane to think that such a wonderful institution exists, uh, as a public school, no less, in an inner city such as Columbus, Ohio. And I personally feel fortunate, and I have to say I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for some of the phenomenal instructors there. And I know Miss Uhas Sauer would be elated to hear you give her a shout out right now over here, Eric. So
Yeah. Well, I hope she gets to hear this.
I don't know. She will. She will. I will make sure of it. So
All right.
do
Well,
you
shout out to Greg Walton too. We're giving a shout outs to teacher, and shout out
you,
to
you,
Eric East, and Greg Maynard was actually Doreen's teacher, student teacher, like assistant. And Greg Maynard taught for a while in the Columbus public school system. An
oh
old,
wow. Do you
yeah.
do you do you get to go back to Fort Hayes at any point? They were trying to get me to work on the reunion, the student reunion for my class, but me being in DC and Ohio just seems so far away, even more so as time passes. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I still got family in Ohio, so I like to go back and visit.
Yeah,
And I still am in touch with Greg Walton on a
yeah.
fairly regular basis, so that's pretty cool.
We
And I
should
still have
definitely
a
bring
few.
him up. He'll be a guest. He'll be a guest speaker.
Whoa, that would be far out. All right.
That would be great. I would love that. Do you remember Jara Oliver?
Yes, I do
She was
remember
my
Jarrett Oliver. Yes. How is
Yeah,
she?
yeah. She came to visit me actually a few weeks ago. She's now
What?
yeah, she's a director at Ohio State for giving.
Oh,
So
I love it.
yeah. So we should bring her on, and she could also
Totally.
do a little pitch for our listeners here to help donate to Ohio State's coffers. Which, by the way, Ohio State also I have has a dear place in my heart. Uh, I spent a lot of years at Ohio State, 7 years as a student and as an employee there. So it's a long time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I grew up in Ohio State campus as a kid in high school and middle school, like, pretty much experiencing college life in those early years, which was kind of cool because my mom
That's
lived
really
like
sweet.
right down the street. Um,
Well, Ohio State right now is what, like, ranked like I mean, it's definitely in the top 50 of all U.S. universities, public and private. That's a pretty big deal. Ohio State
yeah,
really is amazing college. I gotta say, one of the best. Anyways, all right. So let's see. Well, I think we could talk about some of the businesses I'm holding. What about my ATM business? I have had an ATM business. I don't know if you know this, Eric. I've had an ATM business for since 2018. That's 6 years ago at this point. And there has not been a single year where I actually made a profit until this year. This year, I think I'm finally gonna make a profit for the first time. So
And did you go into that expecting this type of delay in profit return?
no. When I first started the business, and it's funny because in the last couple of years, you may start seeing a lot of like advertisements from coaching companies trying to say, "Hey, start your own ATM business. You'll be super rich." The reality is it just isn't. It isn't like that. Sure, there's a possibility that you're gonna be able to get a really good ATM in a really good place. But I gotta tell you, in the last it was not until the last 2 years that I started getting locations that are good. And when I say like good, I'm not saying like by virtue of type. So almost my entire portfolio consists of hotels. So tier one, tier three hotels, and they're all in the DC area. So you think a hotel would do well. I can tell you right now, I have one hotel that doesn't even bring in $100 a month. That's how bad it is. And now if you think about the cost of there's a lot of costs associated with the ATM business. And so if you're thinking about joining the ATM business, I want to just, say, do your due diligence. And it's hard to do because there's not enough people out there that'll just tell you straight what it's like. So imagine this, okay? You decide to start an ATM business. Now, chances are good you don't know what to do. So you're going to have to spend either a lot of time learning how to program an ATM and what you need to connect to it, and then go through the whole life cycle business. Or you may have to hire a third party vendor, so like one of those coaching companies which charges you a lot. I'm telling you right now, all the profit that one makes in the ATM business is probably going to be from coaching. So I'm really giving this free information for anybody that wants to create an ATM business out there. But you have to program an ATM. So you have to know what ATMs you can even buy, because some ATMs, if you go to eBay and you be like, "Oh, I can find an ATM for $1,500." Well, yes, you can, but is that ATM up to date under current regulations? Because ATMs are regularly refreshed with new encryption requirements, things like that, in order for gateway processors to use them. So, and by the way, you also have to find a gateway processor, right? So basically, a company that when your client's customer, the client is the business, right? So your clients are the business, and their customers, the patrons that use the ATMs, when they use the ATMs, there's a processor that connects their debit card into their bank and does it all electronically, and then puts in whatever amount is distributed out back into your account. So that person costs money. So if you can find the right vendor for that gateway processing, well, you have to find them, and then you have to then have a business relationship with them. Then you also have to pay them, right? And then you have to pay for the internet service. Chances are good in the olden days, you would have a phone line, a phone jack, but most of the players in the game today don't do that. They still exist. Um, Ethernet cables also exist, so you can do that. Technically, that would save you some bucks, but the vast majority these days are doing encrypted cell phone connections. So you would have a cellular device that connects to a major carrier like Verizon, T-Mobile, so forth, and that's how your clients, customers, the patrons that use the ATM can actually use the ATM. Then you have to buy the ATM, you have to program the ATM, you have to get a processor and have the wireless connection. But then you also have to know how to find a customer, right? A client. So you have to invest in marketing, advertising, and if you don't have much of a budget, you're going to have to do a lot of calls. You have to find businesses, and you have to determine what businesses are good, right? As I mentioned, just because something may seem intuitively good doesn't mean it's good. DC, intuitively, one would think, oh, DC would be really good for ATMs. Not necessarily the case. Oh, hotels as a class as a vertical would be a really good clients. Not necessarily the case. And I will say this, probably the best from what I've seen out of having a whole bunch of clients across multiple verticals, from restaurants to live bars to hotels to malls and to high-rise apartments and all that. Your absolute best bet is going to be malls. Malls are by and far the winners. But here's the problem. So for all you small time guys out there that want to start an ATM business, the market is saturated. You're not going to have a very high chance of winning a mall or a hotel because they're typically managed by a corporation that goes beyond that individual location you're looking at. Those corporations probably already have existing contracts with major players like the one that I'm affiliated with. And so because of that, it's very hard to get into the business. And the only way that small timers really get in the business is that they undercut the big players by a lot. So meaning that, let's say you charge, $4 at per transaction, right? At a hotel in DC, right? That's more or less that's a fair price, no matter what part of DC you're at. And, and this is just generalities. There are, it's plus or minus depending on a lot of factors. But in DC, about $4 transaction. If you're a small timer, you should be expecting to. I mean, you can be expecting, in order to win that contract, out of that $4, you'll probably end up with maybe $1.
Wow.
Maybe
Just
50 cents, 75 cents to $1. That's per transaction. And keep in mind, you're on the hook for all the liability. And this is not like vending machines, right? Vending machines, your cost is buying the machine and then buying the stock. Well, guess what? Although ATM business is more simplified, you don't have a variation of Hershey bars and all the other crap you got to buy for a vending machine. Your commodity is cash. That means that you have to find a bank that's willing to do business with you, which, by the way, most banks will not want to do business with you for two reasons, not one, but two reasons. One, risk. ATM business are inherently risky and risky in the sense that it deals with cash as a business, but also risky in the sense that since the U.S. Patriot Act, there is intense scrutiny off of any type of business that deals with cash as the main commodity. ATMs have historically been known to be sources of money laundering in the past for, the old Italian mafia, but nowadays it is also feared as a potential instrument for money laundering for terrorist organizations.
mm-hmm.
Banks don't want to deal with that. And then the second part is you're a competitor to a bank. Those banks also have ATMs. And do you think banks are going to be like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do business with you and give you the cash to compete against my ATMs? No, a lot of banks will not do that, and they will only do it if you have certain connections at the bank, or if you have some type of relationship with that bank. And to be honest with you, I personally, I had to go through a lot of banks turning me down. I actually almost gave up in the beginning, but then I was able to
How
develop
many?
courage. I don't really want to say, but I went to no less than 6 banks before I found one where I actually became really close friends with the manager, the branch manager, before I kind of laid it on him on what I was trying to do. And he actually, I don't know if he did, he did some bypassing or whatever, but he made it work. So
Awesome.
and I've been a client ever since. So I'm very appreciative of that bank. So I'm gonna not mention them here, just for security reasons,
Sure.
but otherwise I would. So anyways, so you have a lot of costs, as a small timer. So if you really want to get into this business, I'm not going to dissuade you, but you need to know all of the problems. And also, by the way, you're gonna have to I mean, that cash you're gonna have to front, right? So you're talking about 20 grand, 40 grand per ATM that you're putting in there. I mean, you may not want to put that much in there depending on how busy it is. or what your risk tolerance is. But no matter how much you put in there, every single day that passes, that's a day that that ATM could get either vandalized or destroyed or stolen. In fact, in the 6 years I've owned my ATM business, I had 2 ATMs stolen, and they were stolen not from a 7-Eleven gas station or anything like that. They were stolen from upscale hotels.
Ooh.
So and one was in DC in a upscale area, and one was in Alexandria, Virginia, which is considered a an upscale area. So
How much did you have in each one? Cash.
it still pains my heart to talk about it. But so all in all, to include equipment losses, because they stole the whole ATM. All right. They stole the whole ATM. I mean, there's a lot of talk about it being an inside job. I mean, how can you not hear, like, how can there not be an attendant that not hear a group of men like freaking banging against the ATM to have it ripped off of the bolts, right? Because they're all
Right.
bolted to them. But all in, it was about, shoot, let me think. I would say about $25,000 in losses.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you were able to have insurance cover it, hopefully?
Insurance. So the insurance I had covered, because at the time when I had those ATMs, my business was still relatively small, and there's economies of scale with insurance. If you have a lot, then the cost per location goes down. But since I didn't have that many, it was just too expensive to have insurance cover the cash, because cash is super expensive to cover as insurance. That is ultra high risk. So
Right.
I had the machines covered, but 2 of the machines were already near end of life. Or I mean, one of the machines was near end of life. The other one was relatively new, but ultimately that wasn't where the cost was. The real cost was the cash itself that was lost. So yeah, it's pretty rough. So,
Now,
but
because of this loss, is that part of the factor of why it's taken 5 years for the ATM business to become profitable, or that's not in the equation?
well, that's definitely part of it, right? Well, if you think about it, each time I spend, so how much I personally spend, because I have some special deals and connections with manufacturer vendors. All in, I spend about $5,000, between 4 to 6 grand, for initial equipment on each new site. So if I have, let's just say, averaged out well, let's just say average out 6K, right? 6,000 times, let's say 30 units. That's $180,000 that I've spent out of my own pocket, my own cash. So that's a lot of money,
Yeah. What?
Now keep in mind, of that 180, I also have to, in each one of those ATMs, even if it's a low performer, you're still putting at least $4,000 or more, unless if you want to go there every day, right? So you're talking about really hundreds of thousands of dollars that you no longer have access. That's your money, and that money is at risk. And all the while, you're only making a fraction of what the actual surcharge is. Up until 2 years ago, I didn't even break $3,000 a month. That's pretty insane. Only in the last year plus, I've been over 3,000. And it's funny. It's terrible. That is absolutely. You can't even, like, 180. Just talk about equipment. Although the equipment has their own value, right? It's not fully depreciated. If I sold the business, that would go into consideration, right? But
Right.
just comparing to the cost of equipment, that's 60 months at $3,000 a month. That is 5 years just to pay for the equipment that I've purchased. Never mind the ATMs that were stolen and the cash that were stolen. Never mind the I have to also, because I'm affiliated with a large provider, I have to pay a license fee, which the license is every 10 years, and it's expensive. It's several $1,000s. So it's there's a lot of aspects to it that is very costly. But the good news is this, though. I finally, in the last 2 years, I had some real home runs. I got 2 malls thanks to the power. Finally got, the branding power of my network. Finally landed me 2 mall contracts, and one of them just yesterday. You want to know how much it made yesterday?
How much?
It made $153 just yesterday. Just that one ATM, $153.
Awesome. So how much cash went out of that machine, you think?
Oh, I know. So I have I pay for that's another thing I pay for. I pay for a monitoring system that gives me real time data. So yesterday it was $4,500 was dispensed,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
2 days ago I made $199.75, so $200, and that was $5,500 dispensed. So not
And
bad.
then, yeah, no, that's not bad at all, man. You know.
If all my ATMs were like that, I would tell you, hey, you should go in the ATM business. Everything else be damned. But unfortunately, those are unicorns, man. I'm telling you, that is not typical. That is not a
Hmm.
that is not a common sight. Uh, and then I have one. Let me tell you. Let me give you the inverse. Okay. I have one. It's a Springfield Suites brand hotel, so it's a pretty well known hotel chain. Uh, in the last 30 days, the performance of that ATM in revenue, or the surcharge revenue fees.
Hmm.
You want to know how much it is? You want to take a guess? 30 days.
Oh, surcharges, fees in total.
Yeah, yeah. Total fees for 30 days for that Springfield Suites.
$100.
No, not even, brother.
What?
59.85.
Wow. Okay, so
I know.
59. So you're getting like maybe $5 from that, or $10.
Well, so it really depends. So there are different ways to write contracts.
Right.
So the contracts I write, there's two popular ones. Okay, the ones you may know are like rent, like if you are renting an apartment.
Hmm.
Uh, and it'll depend on what type of location it is. So you may want to do a rental on a major acquisition or something like that. Like if you were to do a business with a corporate firm that owns multiple locations, you'd be like, all right, I'm going to put an ATM in all of your places. I have exclusive rights, and I'll pay rent a flat rate for all of them, and you may even include a performance bonus or something like that. But then what we try to do typically is the most beneficial, and I'm going to recommend this to everybody out there, is have a revenue sharing program, because you don't want to pay rent. You don't know how well like you will never really truly know how an ATM does unless if there was an ATM in there before and you had somehow been able to get the rights to or been able to grab a copy of their past performance. I'm going to tell you right now, no competitor, even if it's an outgoing competitor, will ever be willing to give you their past performance of an ATM that they're pulling and you're putting in there afterwards. They will not do it because they have no incentive to, right? They don't care about you. So you're going in essentially kind of blind. You have a general understand. You may have a general understanding of how much it would make based off of what type of location it is, where it is, if it's a hotel, how many rooms it services. I mean, you have to think of it from that perspective.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you still just don't know. And so when you put it in there, right, you're going to be like, all right, well, I don't want to pay rent because what if it just consistently does poorly and my rent is more than I charge?
Right.
So, and then there's also utilities and all that stuff. Don't pay for any of it. Write the contract so it's a revenue sharing. Say, okay, I don't pay I don't pay any rent. I don't pay any utilities. All I'm paying for all what we'll do is that I will give you X percentage based on the number of transactions made. Now, if the transactions, if it could be scaled, right? The transactions are more. Let's say if you go from X number of transactions a month to X plus X plus Y, then the amount that the location will get will be even more. Well, like the percentage will be even higher.
Hmm.
So that's an incentive for them to kind of also, make sure that the ATM is in good condition. That they make sure the ATM is in a good location, a good spot at the. And by the way, where you place an ATM in your client site can make or break it as well. So
Right. Duly noted.
because at the end of the day, guys, when the majority of people that use ATMs, they do so only partially because they need it. But a large part of it, if not the more than 50% part of it, is impulse. Oh, I have nothing better to do right now, and I see an ATM right here. I guess I need some cash. I'm just gonna go grab it. So if you have
Really? That's the
yes,
psychology behind it?
that's the psychology behind it. That's why ATMs are all bright and stuff. So because they want you to see it. When you see an ATM, you're like, all right, okay, I guess I'm gonna grab some cash real quick. I know I'm kind of out of cash. Bam, done.
Hmm. And it makes you feel good when you have it in your hands.
It really does. You know what? We started putting toppers on some of my ATMs, and I gotta tell you, when I saw them, it's so stupid that they light up and it just makes it really bright. And all it says on the toppers, like the toppers literally go on the top of the ATM, and it's like a big billboard sign, and it says "Get cash now." That's it in big bold letters. Get cash now. You know what? Every one of those locations outperforms the rest of my portfolio. Hands down. So
You got to get on top of putting toppers on all those other ones, man. What are you
yeah,
doing?
toppers on all of them. In fact,
Yeah.
actually, I'm talking to a company that does toppers, and what they do is they actually do video advertising for their customers. So they're a marketing company, and what they do is they'll put a topper on an ATM, and those ATMs, those toppers will show like they're like tablets, right? And they show like commercials for various vendors. And so that's actually another revenue opportunity I was thinking about of putting them all on mine. If again,
Yeah, I hear that, but I feel like just having some type of uplifting message would be even a better approach. There's like too many video, TV ad kind of screens out there, like on the back of a taxi or whatever. I feel like
I
if you
agree with
had
you.
if you had some type of interesting marketing branding, like some type of positive affirmation, then like I think not only would people be inspired psychologically to trigger themselves to want to use it, but then also like it would be good for branding and yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I agree 100%. But here's the thing: if some of my ATMs are doing kind of poorly, like the one I said that's under $100 of revenue a month, you
Hmm.
tack on you tack on one of those toppers. I mean, depending on how the deal goes down, that might add $150 a month to my bottom line. So
No.
yes,
How
yes.
much
So
does one topper cost?
well, the toppers are provided by the company, the one that I'm currently talking with. So they essentially do like an ATM model themselves. They provide the equipment at no cost, and how they make money is they give us a revenue share off of what their customers, their broadcast, their corporate the corporate clients that advertise on our toppers would be you know paying. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of money. Like, don't underestimate the how much corporate or enterprise customers pay for advertising. Like in their minds, it's a no-brainer. Oh, I can put advertising for pennies on the dollar compared to a TV ad, and I can put it in more places at a place where everybody's going, and it's for people that obviously have some money because they're using an ATM. Yeah, that's a huge win.
Right, right. But I mean, I think you can do these toppers yourself, man. You don't have to, and
Yeah,
do
well,
it
I
in an
mean,
affordable
I,
way.
I'm open to all possibilities. It's just trying to see what makes most sense. And also, I have another thing too, where I got to make sure that um, I work in accordance with agreements with my network, because my network has their own requirements. So I have to. So before any toppers are actually placed, I got to work with my network.
I gotcha. Okay.
You know how that red tape is. So that's another thing for you small fries that want to go into ATM business. If you do end up signing up with a network, you're going to be beholden to whatever they say to an extent. So be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour, man. Almost the entire hour passed by. I gotta tell you
I
that.
know this has been a great crash course in ATM tricknology.
Yeah, hey, well, that was the part of the point of our podcast was to talk about everything and anything, right? So,
Yeah, I agree. What do you have in mind as a wrap up, and also what do you have in mind about next week?
oh man, I'm gonna keep the what we're gonna talk about for next week kind of under wraps for now, so people actually come back to listen to it. But as a wrap up, I'm gonna make it a kind of free form in case you want to talk about anything or any updates for you, Eric Ebright. On you can talk about you can tell me a little about well, tell everybody a little bit about where you're currently at, because I
Mm.
know you are not in the continental US anymore. You have decided to move. Well, you're still in the US, but you are not in the
I,
continental US. So I'm gonna leave that to
I,
you.
yes, I am in Quebradillas, Puerto Rico. Vamos aquí, es una isla muy verde y muy linda, con un corazón en todo el gente es para ti.
Wow,
Yeah,
your
man.
Spanish is getting really good there.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Necesito practicar porque no aprender mucho.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, you're doing
yeah.
good.
So yeah, I'm out here on the northwest coast of Puerto Rico, and
Oh man,
yeah, it's been good. You know,
I hear a topic coming up for next week's meeting.
indeed, yeah. There's a lot to say about it. I mean, one thing I think I find fascinating is mm, the cultural ramifications of being identified as a gringo in Puerto Rico, and
Oof.
these things and how they affect people psychologically are fascinating. And a gringo is not only an Americano. It turns out Europeans are considered gringos too. I just learned in general. So
Now,
um,
do the Puerto Rican diaspora, do they view the quote unquote gringos kind of like when they say that and when they interact in that with that mindset? Is it derogatory in nature, or is it just kind of like a descriptor?
Well, it varies. It varies. There's obviously like underneath the conversation, depending on the context. Truthfully, I have my friend Dave. He goes by Dave Gringo. And he rocks it as like a silly little phrase, and that's how he has
Yeah,
himself saved in his phone. And that's his little.
yeah. Doesn't take himself
So
seriously.
right, exactly. It can be a term of endearment, but you
Yeah.
you know you might see it spray painted on the wall in some tunnel,
Oof,
"Go home, Gringo," and
oof.
then it makes you think about some
That's
things.
pretty serious. I mean, that's
Hmm.
a threat. That's a threat in my view, right? Like you're
Right,
saying, hey,
right.
you don't belong here. You got to go, and I'm gonna call you by what many I would assume would view as a derisive term, right? It's a
Yeah,
derogatory.
yeah, totally. You know, and
Well, we'll definitely leave that for our next chat as one of our topics. So, hey, Eric, it's been amazing chatting with you as always, my friend. And, we may have a guest speaker as well. So it's going to be fun.
cool. Well, I look forward to next week, and shout out to everyone who's listening and showing us some support. And I'm grateful that this Fort Hayes connection has been resurrected, and let's bring some more people on, and also let's continue to inspire each other. I'm really glad that you got your site up today, Sean. Today is doing okay.
That's right.
Very nice.
That's right. It's for today and tomorrow and well into the future. So I'm excited as well. So thanks again, Eric. And we'll talk to everybody this time next week.
All right. Hasta la pasta.
All right. Bye all.